I enjoy a lot of things that normal people wouldn't enjoy.
I don't enjoy that.
I also can't see how you can say it to a teacher.
Can't say what?
Stay and teach for so long.
Like, if I had to deal with a class like this, I would have already quit. I would have been like, sorry.
Hey, all I do is torture in my own way. I already have a worksheet made out for y'all later, so
Oh, that's so sweet.
you know.
A sheet?
I torture in my own way.
A sheet?
You're still learning. I'm just torturing you in my own way.
Pull me on mine.
Okay.
So you know.
But I feel bad that I'm part of it.
Oh, you're back.
Now, we are in chapter 6. Now, chapter 6, the entire chapter 6 kind of blends together. If you don't learn section 1, you're going to find out that by the time we get to the end, you're not going to know everything you need to know, because it kind of carries over into each lesson. And you're going to realize that as we go, because we're going to deal with different shapes in chapter 6. Some of them are going to be parallelograms, some of them are going to be squares, some of them are going to be rectangles, some of them are going to be what we call a rhombus, and all that's going to be explained. But they all have a lot of things in common. And if you learn it for one shape, you pretty much don't have to learn it again. You know it. But what happens if I don't learn it for the first one? Then I don't know it at all. And by the time I get to lesson 3, you're going to say, well, I don't know how to do this. And I'm going to say, well, we already did that over there in lesson 1. And you're going to say, well, I didn't learn it. And so you're going to be in trouble because you didn't learn it for lesson 1 or lesson 2 or lesson 3. So you're pretty much going to fail a test. You got to stay caught up in chapter 6. Because I'm giving chapter 6 as a test right now, starting today, to my first block. And a lot of them are having trouble with it. And they are my advanced class. And if they are having trouble with it, you are definitely going to have trouble if you don't stay caught up. The key word there is caught up. If you stay caught up and do your job, you're going to be fine. But if you fall behind and don't do your homework like you've been doing, you're going to be in trouble. Because this is really not a hard lesson. None of them are. Majority of it is learning what I'm telling you. Now, here's the deal. We've got a couple of things to learn. And several of them are just some formulas that we're going to be using. So the first one that we're going to be using is what we call the interior angle sum theorem. Interior angle sum theorem. You might want to write. Now, what we're talking about is we're finding the total sum of all the angles inside of our polygon. Now, when we're talking about a polygon, we're not talking about just a triangle. We're talking about all kinds of shapes. We're talking about 4-sided shapes, we're talking about 7-sided shapes, we're talking about 12-sided shapes, we're talking about all of them. So if I want to find the interior, it's not like it was with a triangle. It's not 180 all the time now. It's going to change on every problem.
Oh no.
So you got to figure out how to find the total. Real simple. So for this, we're going to do n minus 2 times 180. There's your entire formula. Right.
Oh, sweet.
N minus 2 times 180. Now, in this form, N, right here, is the number of sides. So if it has 10 sides, it's going to be 10 minus 2. If it has 6 sides, it's going to be 6 minus 2. It's going to change every time. Because every time you have a different shape, the total is going to be different. Okay? So, we're going to do some of these in just a second. So, does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so let's try one. So let's say that I want to find the interior. Okay, so we're going to find the sum of 13 sides. Now that's not the way it's always going to be written, but just for an example here to get you started. So if I want to find the sum of 13 sides, what am I going to do?
13 minus 2 times 1.
Okay, it's that simple. I'm going to take my form, which is n minus 2 times 180. I just told you that n is the number of sides. So I just told you it was 13. So now it's going to be 13 minus 2 times 180. So what does 13 minus 2 equal? 11. So it's now whatever 11 times 180 is going to be the answer to my problem. So if you multiply 11 times 180, what do you get?
1,900.
You get 1,980. Since this is the interior, we're dealing with angles, it's going to be degrees. So it's 1,980 degrees. Now that's a lot different than 180 degrees. Triangles, yes, are always 180, but not in polygons anymore. So it's going to constantly change all the time. So any questions? So every time they tell you what it is. So if it's got 5 sides, if you count. So for example, if they showed you a picture and it had, 8 sides, all you got to do is count and find out how many sides, and you would know that it would be 8 minus 2. Now I believe your homework tonight may be on IXL. I'll have to double check. But again, a lot of this on IXL in this chapter is, again, learning the information. Do you know what the form is? Do you know how to use it? Do you learn everything that I'm trying to tell you? Okay? So, if I told you this time that the sides were, let's say it was 9 sides. So all this should be easy. So you have a calculator. So if you do 9 sides,
1260.
because I'm just making this up, so I don't know what it is. So yes. So if I plug that in, it would be 9 minus 2 times 180. So that came out to be 7 times 180. So yes, it would be 1,260. Now remember, that's degrees. Now, that's if I'm hunting the total. Now, what happens if I'm looking for, let's say I'm looking for just one of the angles. So what if I'm looking for just one? I don't want to know what they all total up to be. What happens if I'm looking for just one of the angles? Divide by what? That's exactly it. So if I'm looking for just one angle, then I'm going to do exactly what I just did right here. but I'm gonna divide the final answer by the number of sides. So let's try that. So let's say I want to find one angle of, let's say, 15 sides. Okay? So we want to find one angle out of 15. What do I need to do first? What do I need to do first?
Sides. No, write down the name.
How many?
I need to do this first. So you gotta find the total before you can do anything. So the first thing you've gotta do is find the total. So do exactly what you just did. So it's gonna be 15 minus 2 times that 1/8. So find that answer first. When you find that answer, then we're going to do the second part. Now, that's your only option. Would you like this? Yeah, it's on your desk. Then you were so far asleep you didn't even know you had one.
That was sleep, ain't gonna hold you.
Okay, so if we do this, we're gonna have, well, I can type it in right, not 413. Okay, so that's gonna total out to become 2340. So that's the total. Now we only want one of those. So in part 2, what you've got to do is you now have to divide the total by the number of sides. Okay? So you've now got to divide the total by the number of sides, and that's going to tell you what one of them is. So, if I do the 2340 divided by that 15, it's not the 13, it's the 15. What is that going to give me? Okay, it's going to give me 156. So it tells me that one angle would be 156 degrees.
It's easy.
It is when you pay attention.
What's part 3?
That's elite.
Now, that's if I want just one.
It's always backside.
It's also
I didn't say that. Y'all assume there's a bad side to everything.
It's part 3.
Like, you always want it easy.
What happened was,
Now, what did my clipboard do to you?
It hit his
it
face.
hit my hand.
It hit him on his head.
It really hit
That's
his
going
hand.
to.
Huh?
What?
That's abuse.
Did I say I was going to do it?
Ah, you smart. Hey.
At no point did I say I was going to do it.
He's gonna do it though.
I didn't say when, and I didn't say who.
He said it's going to.
I just said I was going to. Don't be putting words in my mouth. I've been doing this long enough to know. Don't put words in my mouth.
Oh, man.
Okay, let's find one angle if, let's say, it has,
23.
you want 23?
Good.
23 sides. Okay, so I want you to find one angle if it has 23 sides. So do it just like I did the previous one. So you got to do those two parts. So you got to do part 1 and part 2 in order to find me the answer. So everybody should be working. is not a hard, complicated thing. So everybody is working. Are you trying to do sign language there with your answer?
Yeah.
It comes up to repeated decimal, or it says repeated, but it's a whole bunch of different numbers.
We're gonna deal with that, hang
Yeah,
on.
like this.
Now, if it's a repeating decimal, then they're gonna tell you to,
Round it.
round it. Usually it's to the 10th place, which is one place after the decimal.
Say the same.
So they'll usually tell you to round, so you gotta make sure you can round. Okay, so if we did this like we were supposed to, 2 steps. Then the first one, it should have been 23 minus 2 times 180. So that was going to leave me with 21
Minus one.
times 180. And that was going to be what? 3780. So you got to make sure your first answer's right, because if it's not right, then the second one's not going to be right. So now in the second one, it should have been 3780 divided by 23. So if I divide that by 23,
164.2.
I'm going to end up with 164.3478261. Of course, it keeps going. But, like I said, they're going to want you to round it if it's a decimal. So, what would this 4 do to this 3?
Say the same.
It would keep it the same. So again, like I've said before, is 164.34, all that mess, is that closer to $164.30, or is it going to be closer to $164.40?
30.
It'd be closer to 30. Because is this 34, is that 34 going to be closer to 30, or is it going to be closer to 40? 34 is closer to 30. So, that's why we round it. So then we cut it off, we round it to exactly 164.3. So we only want one number after the decimal if we've got to round these. So any questions? So we understand how to find the total. We understand how to find exactly 1. Okay. Now, what happens if we need to find the exterior?
Interior.
We have words on the interior. Now we got to talk about the exterior. Okay? So we need to talk about the exterior here for a minute. Now, what that means is if I have any kind of a shape, okay, the exterior is going to be where they add on these extra lines. Okay? It just means every line does not end at the angle. Then what they're going to do is continue to draw it on out. I was looking for where they actually show it. So for example, if I draw you, circles are not polygons.
Polygon.
Okay. So if we have something that looks like this,
A house.
instead of these shapes actually ending at these points, they're going to keep going in those directions. So this line can keep going in this direction. This line can keep going in this direction. This line can keep going in this direction. This line will keep going in this direction. And this line will keep going in this direction. So what happens is every line will keep being extended past the point where it touches the next line.
Would that work for both sides?
You can't do it in both directions. It can only be done in one direction. So we don't want to do it here and here. We just want to do them all in the one direction. So if I do it this way, then I'm going to continue going around in one direction. So I either want to go around this direction doing it, or I want to go around that way doing it. I don't want to go in both. So every line is getting extended. That creates these exterior angles. Okay, so now I have all these nice exterior angles that I didn't have before. And I can do this with any polygon. Now this is also an easy one to do. Now you know how to find the interior. Now the exterior is just as easy. Now for the exterior, you have an actual theorem again. And for the exterior, it is always 360 divided by, again, the number of sides. It is always 360. It never changes, no matter what the shape is. So I don't care if it's 5 sides, I don't care if it's 12 sides, I don't care if it's 36 sides. It's always 360. So all you'd have to do is 360 divided by 5, 360 divided by 7, 360 divided by whatever. And it's always going to tell you the exterior. Again, of only one. Because what is the total of the exterior? $360. The total is always 360. 1 is going to give you this. So if I want one angle of, say what? 17 sides. And again, we're doing exterior. One exterior angle. Okay, so we got one exterior angle of 17 sides. What am I going to do? I'm just going to simply do 360 divided by 17. It's always going to be the same. It's never going to change. I'm not trying to confuse you. I'm not lying to you. It's always the same. So 360 divided by 17 is going to give me, okay, it'd be 21 point, again, 17647,059, depending on how many spaces. But again, we want to round. So it became what? 21.2. So that 7 causes this one to round. So our answer is going to be 21.2. So I've shown you 3 things so far. None of them are complicated. So if you want to find the total of the interior, if you want to find one angle of the interior, or if you want to find one angle of the exterior, all 3 of them should be very easy to find.
Let's see the actual problem. and see if we
But what else?
But what else? What do you mean, what else?
There's gotta be something else.
Yeah, that's all right.
This can't be this easy without something.
Something else. We know something else.
There's gotta be like a
I've
negative
been
or
here for too
something.
long, man. I know something
A
else.
negative?
There's
Probably.
gotta be, yeah.
How is it a negative?
Probably a fraction.
I don't know what you're talking about.
It's a word. It's a word.
Oh,
It being the
The
simple
alphabet,
is too
something.
good to be true.
We know something.
I don't know what you're talking about. Y'all just always assume the worst out of me. I don't understand why.
Because all these stories.
I assume.
I don't know what stories.
I'm dirty.
I don't know what you're talking about. Okay. All I'm trying to do is copy this out of the book. Okay.
Isn't that cheating?
Just shut up and copy. That's all you got to do. I didn't have to take an art class and pass art to do this. I did have an art class and it did not turn out very well.
Is that why?
You keep that stuff around, bro.
Well, you're not even drawing over there, so what have you got to be talking about?
Exactly.
Yeah, uh-huh. You don't even have an excuse because you're not doing anything.
Me?
Yeah.
Look, see, I told you. I told you. It was something. That's an ugly shape.
Draw.
I got you.
You want an actual problem? Here's a problem.
No, she wanted it actually.
I knew this letter somewhere.
See, I tell you about that one.
What you did? Oh, you round them.
Well, it's too late. You got it now.
Kids not getting on homework. All I do like, yeah.
Just delete what I said.
I don't have the delete button.
All I do geometry.
Huh?
All I do geometry.
You got the super cell.
This is geometry.
Wait, oh,
What do you think I'm doing?
I don't know. I feel no. I feel numbers.
Do that take 100% pass for algebra?
Yeah. Although you should have already done some algebra. Did you not do some last year?
I don't
Yeah,
know.
all of them.
I just did work.
But most of you probably didn't learn it. That's our problem.
That's what we did.
I like
With
doing
the
algebra,
algebra.
yo.
Okay, we are gonna find X. Now, what do we know about the exterior? That it equals what? 360. So we're gonna add all this up and set it equal to 360. So I don't care what order you put them in, but you need to go around the shape, adding them all together. So I'm gonna start over here. So I've got 3x plus 10 plus 2x minus 5 plus 5x plus 2x plus 6x minus 5. And of course it's gonna equal 360. So all I did was go around around it. I started here and went around it, writing them all down, setting it equal to 360. And now it should be a simple algebra problem of combining like terms and solving. So what can I combine together? All my x's. So 3 plus 2 plus 5 plus 2 plus 6. So if you take your calculator and you add 3 plus 2 plus 5 plus 2 plus 6, you're going to get what?
A big number.
You're going to get what?
I got 18.
Should be 18.
Oh. Oh, two numbers all wrong.
Well, 2 numbers off is a big deal. So we should get 18x if we add all the x's together. Now, what about the regular numbers? So now we got 10 minus 5 minus 5.
0.
That's 0. So all the regular numbers cancel each other out. So we don't have any numbers. So all the numbers disappear. So all we've got is 18x equals 360. So there is no plus or minus. All that disappeared. So now, divide by 18. And x is going to equal what? 20. So all I had to know is that all of it totals to equal 360. So if I add all of them together, then I'm going to get 360. Okay? So once I set it up, solve it, should be good. Now, what happens if they ask you to find, one of those? So say they want you to plug it back in, and say they want you to find whatever 3x plus 10 really is. Okay? What if they say they wanted you to plug it back in here and find 5x? Okay, now, the problem is they should all equal the same thing. So, you really would only have to do one and you would know what all of them equal. So if they ask you to plug it back in, you should be able to plug it back in. If not, then you would just stop at x. So a lot of this is going to depend on what they ask you to do. Do they ask you to plug it in? Do they ask you to stop? What do they ask you to do? And again, some of you just have to actually read. And you won't read. You won't read directions. You won't do anything. You just want to do what you want to do. And that turns into a problem. Okay. Let's see, what else do I need to do? How much time we got? Okay, we got.
Time to go home.
No, not time to go home yet.
Miss Sullivan,
Yes.
you said if we put them in a setting, they will all equal each other, but I just tried it and they different answers.
They were.